Okay, guys and girls, I'm super excited for today's podcast because I'm interviewing a very special guest. That was a call coming in my end. Hopefully that didn't. This is real life, guys. Okay, this is real life. So Nicole is joining me today, and I'm super excited for her to share her story, her experience. She's got a wealth of knowledge, and I actually met her, probably about 8 or 9 years ago now. That's bad when I think about it. And it was really interesting because we crossed paths in my previous line of work. She had an events company. We were putting on a corporate event, so we were kind of collaborating on that. And I just remember just being like a bit in awe of her because she was the first strong female entrepreneur that I'd ever come across, and she really inspired me a lot. She was amazing at what she did, how she conducted herself and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm really pleased to have kind of reconnected with her, working with her on some other stuff, and to be sharing her with all of you guys today. I know you're in for a treat. So massive welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. How cute is that? Oh, I was inspirational back then. I was bossy back then.
Aren't we all?
Like, no, we're doing it this way. But yeah, no, I can imagine when people haven't been around business women, and also business women in the creative industry, slightly different. There's no suits where I was, it was Doc Martens, leather jackets, fire eating, stilt walking, madness. So yeah, I can imagine it was pretty fun to look in on, but stressful, as is all walks of life, but fantastic at the same time.
For sure. Okay, so let's start by going backwards. So I want to know more about the Nicole just before she started her first business. What was she like? What was she doing? And how did the first business, because you're very multifaceted nowadays, how did that come about? And tell us more about that.
So literally just before I started my first business, it was a moment of sanity, but also a moment of scarcity that made me go, hold on a minute, I need to do more. I need to be more. I need to take control. And so it's been very mirrored with the pandemic. All those years later, 15 years later, the pandemic hit. But 15 years previously, I was a performer, traveling the world, having the most amazing time, using my skills as a performer, entertainer, to live the showbiz dream. But actually, if we're really honest about it, it's hard work, it's soul destroying at times, and it's famine and feast. It really is famine and feast. And some people can weather that famine and feast storm and just get on with it. And I was getting on with it and loving it and having the most fabulous time. And on the outside, it was very much like everything that I'd ever wanted. But on the inside, it was just not consistent. I wasn't in control. I didn't have a say. I was being picked up, put down, dropped. Money was in, money was out. And it just a light bulb, as I say, but more of a like, hold on a minute, there's got to be a better way than this. I am an intelligent person. I'm a dedicated person. All these things, you think, actually, there's another way. And on a whim, as these things generally are with me, I'm going to start my own business. Like, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to create something that's going to have more consistency and more financial consistency in and amongst all of the other wonderful things that I'm having the opportunity to do. Travel the world, sing, dance, fire breathing, the circus, all of these fabulous things, dance with Kylie Minogue. Like, I could go on about how amazing it was, but it wasn't consistent and it wasn't financially viable every single month. And I needed more than that. I wanted to be more than that. So that's just before. The moment of madness was just, I'm going to give this a go. And I think that came from naivety more than anything. Probably the fact that I was a lot younger. I was naive about, how that'd be. But actually, I would say, I could talk about this topic forever. I would say, when people say to you, what would you tell your younger self? I'd absolutely turn that around every single time. What would my younger self tell me? They'd say, just get on with it, do it, work it out as you go in. You'll find a way, you'll make it happen. Learn what you need to learn when you need to learn it. Don't overthink it. Let's not go for perfect. Let's just get it done. So I always go back to that 18-year-old self. I think I was 19 actually, and say, right, what would she have said to you? She'd have said, get on with it, Nicole.
I love that. I love that so much. And I've never heard anyone put it from that perspective before. So I think that's really, really powerful, because you're so true. When we are younger, we don't think as much. And I think sometimes overthinking is what kills most dreams and most progress. So to think of it in that way, like, what would your younger self say to you? They wouldn't even give it a second thought. And so it's actually, sometimes naivety can be a gift in that term. And it certainly was for you. Otherwise, you would have never been where you are today.
Yeah, I wouldn't have started. Certainly, I wrote a book about starting a side hustle, and which is what it was. I was still performing, and I was creating a business to run alongside performing, to financially support that showbiz career. And I wrote a book about it. And actually, the funny story is, when I started with my home printer and a pack of stamps. Like, it was literally that. And in the book, there's 3 pictures of the business logo through the years. It was terrible. Do you know what? I wrote the letter. I printed it off of my home printer. I bought a pack of first class stamps. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I bought a pack of second class stamps. I can't remember, but it was that. It was literally printed it, hand wrote a name on top, folded it up, put a stamp, popped it in the post to the council, and lo and behold, got my first contract just off the back of that, that nothingness. It was nothing. It was just a creative dream idea. It was what happens if it doesn't? Does it really matter? No, let's give it a go. And so I write about that in the book, that it was just such a small idea. It was nothing. I had no business knowledge at all. That it spiraled in so many directions, and here I am 17 years later, and it's all exciting, really.
That's amazing. And I want to come back to the book a bit later as well, because obviously that's launching very soon. It's very exciting. And don't worry, guys, we're going to share all the links and everything you need so that you can find Nicole, the book, all of the things in the show notes. So make sure you check that out as well. So 17 years pretty much in business now. What would you say, kind of in general, have been the biggest lessons and maybe rules that you live by now as you operate these businesses and progress forwards?
So I'm not your typical businesswoman at all, I would say. And when you surround yourself with what you perceive as, typical strategic, business-minded business women and men, you can very, very quickly hit imposter syndrome. And, oh God, I'm not the same. So comparing is the devil. Like, try not to compare, because you've just opened this show saying you were inspired by me. Now, I know for a fact that when I walked into any of these corporate opportunities that I was gifted and that I was there to collaborate with, I was intimidated by, the suits, the strategies, the conversations. But yet we all play a part in this big picture. And you have to be true to you and your part of the picture for the whole picture to come together. So please try not to be comparative. Do not compare. Stay in your own lane, but be very aware about imposter syndrome. It's a very real thing, and it hits everybody more often than people care to admit. My biggest lesson with that is, when it does hit me personally, every emotion is a clue. And so when I feel these things, rather than ignore them, I really lean into them and go, do you know what? Why am I feeling this? Why is imposter syndrome creeping in on this particular moment, on this particular gig, on this particular situation? Why? Lean into that feeling. Every emotion is a clue, and the answer will be there right in front of you. You need to do a little bit more learning, Nicole. You need to go spell check that again before you send it. There'll be something. You need to ask a bigger question, a better question. You need to change up your Insta profile because you know that something, whatever it looks like, there'll be a reason that you're feeling the imposter syndrome, you're feeling the emotion. And I think rather than ignore it, lean into it and learn from it has been my biggest lesson. Keep really focused on your own path. Don't compare, but when these things do crop up, why and what can you do to change them?
I love that. And again, that's just dropping all of the golden nuggets today. I'm loving it. But it's so true, because sometimes when we feel those negative feelings, be that imposter syndrome or a hint of jealousy or whatever it is, it's so natural for us to retreat from it and just feel it instead of diving into it and being like, hang on, what signal is my spirit, what the universe, whatever, trying to send me? Because there's a reason I'm feeling this way. Is it because that person's doing something that maybe I deep down desire to do? Is it because there's area for improvement which I've been neglecting? So I think that's really, really powerful. And like you say, I think especially women at some point and multiple points, we're all going to struggle with the comparison game, with the imposter syndrome. But if you can be aware of that and use it in a positive way, like you say, you can actually turn that into power and use it to level up. So that is amazing. I love that. So obviously your passion is teaching performers, especially how to create a side hustle and create that financial stability. And in this day and age, I mean, I'm in a similar field, like side hustles and multiple streams of income is just, it's not only smart, it's pretty much required at this point. So yeah. So talk to me about, because obviously you're very focused in the performer space because that's where you were. So what would you say your mission is with the businesses you do, with the book, with everything you're doing? What's like your mission?
So it's a good question, because I feel like I change my mission with the wind, really, because I'm so passionate about so many things. But I really have honed in on this because I think it's important. I'm really empathetic for the industry, but it's not just the industry, it's everybody. Like you say, the situation that we find ourselves in economically, financially, worldwide since the pandemic and before the pandemic, but obviously it's heightened now, really does open everybody's eyes to the fact that we want to have multiple revenue streams, multiple income streams, multiple ways of making money. But also that word money just gives people the ick, right? And so people don't want to think about making more money because they don't want to think about money in general. They don't want to talk about money. But in the performing world, particularly, and that's where I've come from, we do it for the love, not the money. It's like that statement, we live and die by it. We do it for the love, not the money. But hold on a minute. We need money to live. We need money to pay the bills. We need money to do. It's not the be all and end all, but it does definitely help, and it is necessary in some aspects of everybody's life. So I've just become really passionate about trying to get people, performers in particular, but everybody, to acknowledge that they can be more than just one thing, to be multi-passionate, to evolve in different directions, to change as well, to change their identity, to not worry about, you know, what we were or what we wanted to be and what we haven't achieved, but just what we can still be, what we can still do, what we can evolve into. I'm still very much haven't been able to categorically put it into words, because it just sends me off on this massive, like, I just want to, however it resonates with people, I want them to hear it how they need to hear it. But the truth of the matter is, I'm going to have to get more direct with how I say it, and it will only hit a few people. But my problem with that is the message is so strong for everybody. But we know about marketing, we know about speaking the language that people listen to and things like that. It's going to have to niche right down, which is why I've picked performers, because that's my background. But really, a side hustle, multiple income streams, opportunities to evolve, to be passionate in other areas, to switch up identities, like it's all that kind of thing. And I'm just on a real mission for those that want the help to know where they can get it on a real low level, small scale to start with. You've got all the big gurus and the online learning, but actually who's lived it, who's been there, who knows the silly questions that you want to ask, who knows those answers. And I feel like right now, the pandemic highlighted to me how much I did know in this area from starting everything 17 years prior. And the pandemic opened up this opportunity for me to say, look, you guys are struggling. I was struggling. You guys have got loads of talents. I had loads of talents. You guys need to make more money. I made loads more money. You guys haven't got a business degree. I didn't have a business degree. So I spoke and opened up my inbox, my world, my life, to performers that needed to pivot and create money at that moment. But now it's become real. It's took a life of its own. It's doing fantastic. I'm loving it. Manic Stage Productions, the original business, is still going really well and really strong. But because it's so widely developed, it's allowed me a lot of capacity to focus over here with the performerpreneurs, building showbiz side hustles. But that message really is for anybody that needs to make more money.
I love it. Oh, again, so much wisdom. And I loved when you were talking about, it's almost like empowering people to have permission to change and to add these other bows to their strings, because sometimes we pigeonhole ourselves and we're scared to go into these new areas or try these new things or be more involved in these other interests, because we feel like we have to completely pigeonhole ourselves and just focus on this thing. And another thing that you said that I really liked was about, and I think it's twofold, these gurus and stuff online that are like, oh, I can teach you this and this and this, but they've not actually done it. They've made their money or whatever through the message that they can help you do that, but they haven't actually done it. I think there's that extreme of people that are charging all this money for courses, all this sort of stuff, that don't actually know what they're talking about. But on the other side, and it feeds into the side hustle thing, is I just believe you are qualified to help the person you used to be. You don't have to have a certificate or a piece of paper to say I have this qualification. But if you have started a side hustle and you were a performer, you can reach back and help someone that's where you were and take them to where you are. If you've been on a weight loss journey and you've improved your health, you can reach back to the person you used to be and pull them forwards. If you have got out of a toxic relationship before, you can reach back, and it's the same thing. So, and you can monetize that with purpose, use that to create your side hustle and help people along the way, which I think is what it all comes down to as well. So I love that,
because I haven't, it is, I'm literally helping the version of me from back then, because it took so long. 15 years is a long time to build a business and to build confidence. I know I always protruded confidence, but actually, imposter syndrome was very real. I had no business qualifications. I was just a performer. So I was doing all these wonderful things, but every single step was hard slog, because it was just always met with self-imposed criticism and worry and stress. So now I'm getting people to where they want to be really quick, because of that support mechanism, that accountability, and that knowledge, like you say, to go, this is how I did it, and I did it on my own, it took this long, and now if we do it together, you're going to take this long. From the pandemics, we're 3 years from the pandemic now. I helped performers pivot in the middle of the pandemic for free. I opened up a Facebook group, a community. It's still open now. Performerpreneur, the side hustle hub. I gave tips. I brought in experts. I brought in friends from different industries. I went live every single day. People have, this is no word of lie, people have bought houses from their side hustles that they started in the pandemic within 3 years. I mean, even less than that. People are on maternity leave with no worries, because they've built pivots and businesses that are supporting them. People have built a second side hustle and another business from that. So where it took me 15 years, it's taken people 2, 3 max. And that brings me so much joy, because my second and third business, I did much quicker as well. So again, that experience of, this is how I did it slowly on my own, and this is how I've done it quicker with all this knowledge and accountability that I've formed over the years. And network. I'm a big believer in network. You can't do things on your own. You can, but you can definitely do things quicker if you collaborate, if you communicate, if you find your people, if you go to even networking meetings and just talk and share your energy. Like even now, you can see, like, I'm just like so pumped up. Why would people not buy into that? Like, and there's going to feel the same with you guys, whoever's listening. If you're passionate about something, people buy into passion. So you have to have opportunities to share that passion, and sitting at home behind a computer, not interacting and collaborating, will get you where you want to be, but it'll get you much faster if you are happy to communicate that passion in person.
I love that. And I feel like that is something that's been lost from the lockdowns, like people have got this social anxiety, and we've kind of just become homebodies, and it's something I'm really trying to integrate more in my businesses, in person, like consultations and catch-ups and team meetings and getting people together, because that human to human energy and interaction, and like you say, like there's a saying of your network is your net worth, and if you can just find a way to be valuable to people, it will always come back to you tenfold. And I want to go back to what you were saying earlier as well, in that it's taken you 15 years to learn all of this stuff. Someone can work with you, and mentors literally compress decades into days. So for anyone that's maybe listening to this and is like, I'd love to do what Nicole's done, I'm currently a performer, I can relate to all of these struggles, like that's where I'm at right now. Like, you need to take action and reach out to these people. And if that makes you feel a bit like uncomfortable or nervous, that's a sign that you need to do it, because you can get there so much easier and in a much more positive way, because going through stuff on your own is lonely and it's hard and you doubt yourself. And so just having that person, whatever journey you choose to go on, if you can reach out to someone and lock arms with someone and they're with you, they're like, I've walked this path, come on, keep going, you're doing amazing, you've got this is normal, it's going to be hard, but we've got this together. So I love that, and I love everything you're doing with that too.
Which is why I wrote the book, because inherently performers, and I'm sure other walks of life, but obviously I can really relate to that. Performer, you're really competitive. You're very much a solo entity. Like, you're going into auditions, you're battling it out with your peers to get the one job out of, 100 people in the room, things like that. So inherently we've become very closed. We're very bubbly and confident and social, but actually when it comes to fight and flight, we're on a mission, we're on a solo mission as a performer, and to ask for help or to change direction, seemingly, this is how I felt, and this is what I'm perceiving when I'm speaking to people, seemingly is a really like vulnerable thing to do. Like, I'm not going to say in front of everybody. I've got this group of over 1,000 people. Very rarely does someone hold their hand up in the group and say, I need help, but I'll get loads of inboxes. And I very rarely shout about who these people are that I'm helping, because I know that it's going to take them a really long time to get to the point where they're comfortable saying, yeah, I'm a performer with a side hustle now. I'm making all this money over here. There's a journey to go on. But the book, I felt like the book could be everybody's secret. Like, there's got to be a way of getting people to understand the possibilities without them having to feel that vulnerability. So I was like, right, the book, it's got to be a book. So I wrote the book in the hope that people will buy the book in secret. They're still a performer, or they're still doing whatever, but they're not changing. I'm not getting a job. That's what they'll think. And then they'll pick up the book. They'll get all the answers. They'll get the foundational bits of information. They'll get links to work with me or to add on a workbook and things like that. And their understanding of the possibilities will grow. Their desire will grow, and then they'll be happy to hold their hand up or their head above the parapet and be like, you know what? I'm still a performer. I'm still awesome. I'm also going to do this because I've got a passion over here, creative energy, whatever that might be, that stimulus, and I'm going to pursue that. And the two will feed into each other. How awesome is that? So the book is like the secret weapon, my secret weapon to get people to open their minds without having to hold their hands up, really. So that excites me as well, because I understand performers. I was a performer. I understand saying that you're going to go do something different might upset your mum, who's paid for it all your life to get you to where you want to be. It might upset, your peers. They might think you're better than them, or actually they're going to say that you're a failed performer because you're not doing it anymore. But actually we've got an internal desire to support ourselves better. So yeah, the book's the secret weapon, and that's why I wrote it. To get people to secretly start to address their desire to be more than just a performer, to be more than just at whatever, and start to develop their own ways of making money.
I love it. And those secret people could also be listening to this podcast right now. So guys, get the book. Like, no one even has to know.
You don't have to know.
All the wisdom, and it's going to help you. So what would you say, in your experience, is like the number one thing that does hold people back from either starting their side hustle or business or whatever, or going all in with it? Because there's starting it, and then there's actually building the thing. They're two very different things. So what would you say is the most common thing you see that holds people back?
There's a list of common things that people say: money, time, knowledge. But I feel like they're just cover-ups for the real thing, which is judgment. I think people worry about being judged, and that's just so normal. And to be quite honest, we're all going to get judged regardless of what we do or what we don't do. But my best advice, when you really dig deep and understand why you're not committing or why you're not doing, and if it does come back to this fear of being judged or this worry of what people will think, is to stop judging and thinking first and foremost, because you're just fueling that, I don't know what the word is, you're just fueling that thought process that other people are doing it. A lot of the time it's you're doing it for whatever reasons, and not necessarily all bad or awful, but if you do it, then you're fueling that whole thought process that it's possible people will do it to you. But I think, I hear money, I've got no money, I can't do money, it's a vicious circle, I've got no time, I haven't got the knowledge, I've got no confidence, but actually I think if we really dug deep, it's that judgment, that worry of failure, which will then lean into judgment. So there's a whole other mindset bit going on there. And the book and myself and how I mentor just pushes past that, actually, it really doesn't matter, but I understand how it does matter because it mattered to me for a very long time. But also that can spur you on to not fail. You can use it as a force for good, like the imposter syndrome, use it as a force for good. I can't bear the thought of failing and being judged for it. Well, don't. How can you make sure you don't? You can get the best support. You can ask the best questions. You can go do some extra learning. You can make sure you don't fail. It sounds easier said than done, but there is ways.
For sure. And I think actually the only real failure is if you give up. You will make mistakes along the way. I'll tell you that for free right now. In embarking on any journey, you're going to mess up a few times, and you might feel a bit embarrassed at times, and you might be like, oh, why did I do that? Or why did I say that? Or whatever. But it's in those moments that we learn. So you either win or you learn. It's only when you give up on yourself and give up on that dream that you actually fail. So if you can look at it like that, and just to add on to your point about what might people say and all this sort of stuff, I just want to ask the listeners that maybe are in that place of, I feel like I want to do this, but what if this person says this? What if mum thinks that, or whatever? I would ask you to stop being selfish for a second and think about who therefore won't be positively impacted because you don't use your voice and share your story. Because I think, like you, Nicole, if you had never thought at the beginning of the pandemic, I need to serve people right now, I've got the knowledge, I can help people, those people you just told me about that are getting their houses and on maternity leave without stress, all of those people would be in a very different situation right now if you hadn't stepped up and been like, do you know what, I'm willing to take any judgment or comments or opinions because I know this is value that I can add to the world, and this is a positive impact that I can create. So when you shift that perspective of who needs me to be louder and share my story and utilize this skill set, it makes you think completely differently.
You're absolutely right. And I had the exact fears at the beginning. Oh my goodness. But I was like, I've got to do something. And the people that want to hear it will keep listening, and the people that don't will move on. But confidence as well. There is a lot to do with confidence in anything that we set out to do. And the bit that really helped me at this moment, starting this particular business in the pandemic, was my knowledge of what confidence actually means. And there's two versions of confidence. There's confidence and self-confidence. And confidence comes from past focused evidence-based situations. So you won't be confident to do something new, but you can be self-confident enough to push past the fear, to live and lean into emotions, to know that you'll be okay and things like that. So when I realized and remembered that in that moment of, I can't do this, like, what if it all goes wrong? I don't feel confident enough to go live and talk about this situation and tell my story. Like, well, you're not going to today because it's the first time you've done it. But that confidence built because now it's a past focused evidence space. I go live, more often than I speak to people in person. But the knowing that I'd built my self-confidence and resilience up. So that if there's anywhere that you wanted to start, improving your mindset and your self-thought for developing a business, a side hustle, or a different direction. It's that self-confidence that is the key. If you can become really self-confident in the fact that you can survive any situation, then it then becomes easier to give it a go. Because what if it goes wrong? Well, it might, but I'll learn, like you said, and I'll grow from that, and I'll be okay. It's the resilience that's sometimes can be really imperative.
For sure. And something I always say with people when it comes to building that self-confidence as well is, I think that the self-confidence part comes from trusting yourself, and that comes from doing the things you say you're going to do. And there's it can go either way. Again, you can either be like, I'm going to do this and this, and over egg it that you can't possibly live up to those standards because you're just starting out or whatever, and then that breaks your self-confidence. Or you just keep quitting on yourself. And it's like I always say to people, like, if you had a friend and you agreed you were going to start running together, let's say, and you went to the meetup spot and they didn't turn up, and you were like, oh, that's weird, and they're like, oh yeah, I'll be there the next day, and they don't turn up again, like that repeated over time, you're not going to be friends for long. You're not going to trust that person. You're not going to make plans with them. And it's the same with ourselves. If we say, right, this is what I'm going to do, and then we do it, we stack these confidence chips. And I think that's really important for building the self-confidence, is setting it at an attainable level and growing it, rather than giving up on yourself or just setting the bar too high that it's impossible to reach. And I think, like you say, once you build that self-confidence, that can then empower you to build the confidence in the particular area or whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah, 100%. And I love all these topics. And I think, I'm speaking specifically here about performers, but I should think in your audience, you've got a lot of performers because of the synergy there with the fitness and the nutrients. I can't say my word today, blah, blah, blah. People believe we are already confident, and that can be really difficult to push past when you know inside that actually you're not as confident as you might seem. But actually, when you understand where confidence comes from and on this new direction and this new journey, and it wouldn't be so much easier to stay on the old path and do the old things, because we're familiar with that. But the exciting bit is you don't know what's ahead on the new path. You don't know the opportunities that are going to rise. You don't know what that looks like. But that self-confidence will let you go discover that, will let you follow that and emerge differently.
For sure. So as we come to a close, then I've got 2 more questions for you. So my first question is, I want to know about the journey, because I know it's been a funny one, of actually writing and publishing a book. Like, how has that been?
This has been like a 10-year journey, but one that I just didn't crack on with. So I'm one of those people that set myself little targets, challenges. Most of them aren't huge, but they just keep me going. I have accountability buddies like yourself for different things, and vice versa, my husband, and I'll put them out to the universe as well. I'll make sure that everybody in my household knows that my target this week to do so and so, and I'm just out there and people know about it. So on my 30th birthday, I'd had a list of things to do before I was 30, tick, 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 tick. I'm 30, what am I going to do before I'm 40? I've just turned 40 and I already know what's on my before I'm 50 list. But writing a book was on the before I'm 40 list. I was 40 in March this year, and put pen to paper a few times, probably wrote about 3 words, didn't quite know what it was going to be. And then hit the pandemic, opened Performerpreneur. It snowballed. I've got a huge passion for helping performers pivot. I've got memberships now, courses, a community. And I just knew that that's what the book needed to be about. But again, this was 3 years ago. So I started telling my community, I'm going to write you a book. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write all this information down. It's going to be in a book. I'm going to write a book. Literally every 6 months, I'd be like, I'm still going to write the book. I'm going to write the book. It became a bit of a standing joke. But January, the first hit, and I was going to be 40 in the March, just gone. I was like, shit, I best write this book, hadn't I? So I sat January the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, didn't write a single word. Imposter syndrome hit me like a ton of bricks. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know where to start. I don't know what people want to know about. I've got too much. I've got too little. January the 12th, I wrote the first word and I could not stop writing once I got past that hurdle. But also I had this time limit of March the 11th. I was going skiing for a middle. I wrote the book, long story short, I wrote the book in 40 days with a big gap in the middle to go skiing on my son's birthday. I handed it over to my editor on my birthday. So I did it the day of my birthday. I finished it. I'd read it and written it, and it was ready to send off on the 10th. I held on to it. I was like, I can't. And I was like, I've got it. It's 40. I'm 40 today. Emailed it across. Boom, done. So I wrote the book in 40 days for my 40th birthday, which was a target 10 years ago, my 30th. It's for the Performerpreneur community that I am so passionate about supporting. But I'm hoping that the book, anyone that knows anything about business and niching and marketing, the book is called The Showbiz Side Hustle Handbook. So primarily, performers will pick this book up because they're my people. That's who I'm writing it for. But what I actually know and hope is that the book will be read by a performer and then passed on to whoever, because it's not specific. It's about building new dreams. It's about resilience. It's about confidence to get started. It's about foundations to build on. It's about believing big, and it's about taking action. So I just, again, you can see how passionate I'm passionate that people will pick it up and go, do you know what? This isn't just for me. You would benefit from this too. And you over here, like, have a read of this. And it just becomes that handbook that gets passed around. But yeah, so I wrote it very, very quickly, but it was 17 years of stuff that I've been living and breathing and doing. Once I started, it started to flow. It gets released on May the 30th. The book cover's designed, the headshot's been done, the marketing started. So yeah, it's all very exciting. And then I've already moved on from that. Before I'm 50, I've already started thinking about what that is. Another 10 years project.
I love it. Well, I will certainly be getting a copy, even though I'm not showbiz, because if anyone has listened to this podcast, they'll already know that Nicole has all of these pearls of wisdom that you want to get your hands on. So like I said, there will be links in the show notes for you to go follow Nicole, for you to get the book, register for the pre-launch. All of the things will be available in there as well. I've got loads of readers in my community, Nicole, so hopefully we will get you lots of orders into. And guys, if you've got value from this, like, take a screenshot of this podcast or YouTube or wherever you're watching this, and share it to your story. Tag us both. You'll find our handles in the show notes, and just let us know what your biggest takeaway was, and share it with someone else. Like, it costs you nothing to pass this on to someone that may get value from this and maybe is in that place of, I feel like I need something else, but is hesitating. And you never know what someone's going through. So by sharing this, you might just be opening a door for someone that they didn't know could be open. So I would definitely implore you all to do that. Share this, order the book, follow Nicole, do all the things. You will not regret it. And then, Nicole, is there anything else you want to say before we close off?
Gosh, I mean, I can talk. There's loads I want to say. No, I'll leave it at that. Come and find me and find out everything else if it's of interest at all. But find your people is my biggest thing. Like, find somebody that gets it. Find the person that you can bounce it off, support each other, support them. Because I think the pandemic took so much away from us, and we need to be clawing that back, the community and the collaboration. But any big dreams you've got, lean into them and just give them a little bit of fuel. Find a way of just seeing if they're possible, because I believe they all are.
Amazing. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Nicole,
for joining me today.
Guys, I hope you love this. I've already decided I'm going to need to get Nicole back on at some point. So maybe a year post book, we need to do another interview and find out what's been going on and how the goals before 50 list is going, because I feel like that's how other podcasts do.
Well, I was going to say, I'm moving abroad. I mean, I'm going to live in a different country. I've started my target to 50. I might be a bodybuilder by then. Like, who knows what I plan to do?
Who knows? I wouldn't put anything past you at this point. I
don't put anything past myself sometimes, but yeah, I've joked about that because I'm moving to Oman and I'm gonna have a lot of time on my hands, so I might just go to the gym every single day.
There you go.
I'm gonna need you guys to help me with that one. That's a big ask. Sure.
Amazing. Well, thanks again, Nicole. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to share it and tag us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Big love. Thank you.